Greetings, beautiful people. This is SB Favor Thinking Podcast, and my name is SB Favor. How are you doing today? It is Tuesday, February 9th, 2021. Another day to be thankful, and as I always say, it's another day to focus on what is good. If you focus on what is good, then you can project something good to happen. I always say that because I truly believe that what you focus on and what you meditate on, it can just show up right in front of you because thoughts are powerful. It's like you giving faith to something that you want. So if you give energy to something long enough, it can manifest right in front of you. So I hope everybody is having a good day. And if you are out there traveling about, make sure that you are wearing your mask, using your hand sanitizer, and doing your part to stay safe. You have to keep yourself safe and you have to keep your family members safe. We are still in the middle of a pandemic, so please keep yourself safe out there. Rebecca is here this evening. How you doing, Rebecca?
Good evening, SB. I'm doing very well, thank you. How's it going?
I am moving slowly.
It's Tuesday.
Yeah, it's Tuesday, but I'm moving slowly. I had a good day, but I'm just moving kind of slow. But I'm here, and it's all about staying determined and being encouraged, right? So that's what it's all about. But we're going to talk about parenting. Being a parent is it's an investment. You are investing in another life to see something that you want to see. Of course, we can't make our kids into what we want them to be, but you can invest in your children so much so that they can be something great. So that's what we're going to talk about, Rebecca. And
sounds good.
Yeah. So I have a daughter. I'm not going to tell you her age, but I have a daughter because I don't want to tell my age. And Rebecca you have what, 2 children, 3 children?
I have 3 now. I have
2. Okay. Well, you have 3, 1 in heaven and 2 here.
Yeah, 1 in heaven and 2. Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Yeah. And so our children are grown, but we're just going to talk about parenting in terms of communication and being an example and entitlement. And what I mean by entitlement, being a parent, sometimes we think that we are entitled to certain things from our children, and being a parent does not mean that we are entitled. So yeah. So Rebecca, what do you think about communication when it comes to communicating with our children as adults? Do you think that it is okay to consider our children to be our friends? Because I hear people say that sometimes, and I have a few friends, they call their children their friends, but I don't believe in that. What do you think?
No, I can't say that, they're my friends,
Right.
because they're my children. But our communication style has changed. The level of our communication obviously has changed from being an adolescent to a teenager and then now to adults, right?
Yeah.
Back when they were children, 12 years old, teenagers, right? We still had those, you have to be home at a certain time, or who you with, or where you going, or, I want to meet their parents, right?
Yeah.
Well, when they're an adult, you can't really do the same thing. You can't say, hey, I want to meet their parents. I mean, it's not something that I would say is appropriate. You let them tell you, because when you raise your children, you the right way. I think. I think in regards to communication, I think they will learn to open up and just almost tell you everything about them and what's going on with them, even when they're an adult. And I think that's a beautiful thing.
Yeah, exactly. If you have a teenager of a certain age, what happens is you have to, I believe you have to grow with your children. Like you said, you communicate a certain way when they are a certain age, but as they change, we have to change as parents. I think that we have to maintain certain standards, and we have to help them to continue to be accountable. I think that unfortunately, I used to hear this thing years ago. People would say things like, well, when they turn 18, they're grown. I don't believe in that either. What do you think about?
I don't believe in that either. And to be honest with you, I don't think I've ever said that.
Me either.
What I did say is, when you have to make a choice. If you either you're going to go to college. If you don't want to go to college, you have to get a full-time job.
Right.
But never to a point where no, you're on your own. Mm-mm.
Yeah, when my daughter turned 18, I just looked at her like, oh well, you're old enough to vote, but you're not grown. You know what I mean? Because a child,
Right.
to me, is not considered a full grown adult until they are established financially and they're paying all of their bills. That is grown to me. you know.
Yes.
You know what I mean? Because everything a child does or every decision they make, it can fall back on the parent. But yeah, I used to hear that years ago. Oh, when they're 18 years old, they're grown. They can leave my house at 18. I would never let my daughter leave my house at 18. No way, because at 18, the average 18-year-old is not established to live, right? So
no, they're not. They're still growing. They're still growing, maturing, and learning life. Absolutely.
Yeah. So we're supposed to grow with our children. I think that as our children get older, we will never stop being parents, because I think that our children will always ask us for advice, possibly. And like you said, if you are listening to them and not prying into their business, then they will come to you and they will talk to you. What do you think about some of those parents out there that try to be friends with them in a way where they're acting just like them? You ever see an older woman acting like a teenager with the teenager? You ever see that?
I have actually. I've seen it. I've actually, seen some parents really act that way,
Mm-hmm.
with their children, and I also see a kind of level of, disrespect.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
That there isn't really a, a hierarchy. I think is the word. Maybe that's not the right word, but
yeah,
there is a hierarchy in the home.
Mm-hmm.
It's the parent is the parent, to be honored and loyal and to be respected. And maybe parents do that to get closer to their adult children, perhaps. Maybe they feel that they're going to lose them, or maybe they're having some type of mid-age crisis. I don't know. But I don't think that's a good idea to take that route with your adult child.
No, it's not at all. I think that parents, we have a responsibility to set an example, and as I stated, to help them to be accountable. I think that everything we do and say, they're watching us, and so we have to exemplify the behavior that we would want them to learn. A lot of times as parents, we are constantly telling our children what to do, but I think that if we exemplify the behavior in ourselves as parents, if we do the thing we want them to do in our behavior, I should say, then they'll follow that. You know what I mean? Not so much follow it to the
100% SB, 100%. But what you just said, yes.
Yeah, not so much following it, mimicking us, but at least they'll have an example. And I think that this generation now, they lack examples because of a lack of parenting. I believe that some of the women act a certain way and unfortunately dress a certain way because they lack authority in their life, because being a parent is a position of authority, because God made he made a protocol. He made the family to be in a certain order, and a mother has a responsibility to show her daughters how to be ladies, and a father has a responsibility to show his sons how to be men. But if that parent is not in their life, there's always a man or a woman that can still be that example in that family. But I think that a lot of times, you mentioned the word disrespect. I think a lot of things that are happening right now in society, it comes from a lack of parenting because, when we were raised, we had different types of discipline that we don't see anymore, right? Even in the high schools, there's things going on that wasn't happening when we were in school. When we were in school, they were, they wasn't walking around with their pants hanging down. You know what I'm saying?
No. And if I could inject there, I just remember, for some reason, it's like, because you did mention school, it seems like a lot of the younger people, let's say maybe in their, last couple of years of high school, majority of the youngsters, they're not really interested. It's like they don't want to finish, they don't want to finish. It's like they have no reason to go and finish and get that high school diploma,
Wow.
And then on the other hand, you have other teenagers, where their parents are really working hard, to keep them engaged and to help them and encourage them, to at least get the high school diploma, and again, I think it all depends, I have to say this, I think it also depends on your background. I think it depends on where you live. I think it depends, is the mom and father, biological mother in that home? Is it a foster family? Is it a step parent? All those factors, I think, have a lot to do with parenting and what happens. The outcome of these young people who now become adults.
And then, you know what? Also, I found out that recently I was watching this video on Facebook, and it was a teacher. She was talking about what the pandemic has exposed about parents because their children have to do the virtual online thing. One of the things she stated was that some of the parents, they are not attentive to the children while they're on, and my sister made a comment too. She said some people see school for children as a daycare. That's crazy. That's crazy. You ever hear something like that?
Well, how they supposed to watch the children if they have to work from home?
Yeah, that is true, because if the parent is working in one part of the house and then the children is working in another, it's just difficult all the way around.
It is. And also, too, some of the teachers, and I say this because of my granddaughter, the teacher doesn't want them to have any type of, distractions. And SB, you're gonna laugh. I have to throw this in there. She had a project to do, and I had no idea that she was in the middle. This is after online school. She's in the middle of reading a story and drawing a story, and I had no idea. So I was in the kitchen getting dinner ready. So after everything was said and done, I said, "Well, Lanny, let me see what you did." And I said to her, "What is all that noise?" She goes, "Nana, that's you making all the noise with the pots."
Oh my God, are you serious?
Yes. And I said there, "Oh my goodness, I did not realize that I was making that." All you heard was pots and forks and spoons.
Oh, wow.
And see, so now that's a lesson learned for me. Because I have to be conscientious of the noise I'm making. When she's online schooling, and I have to say this. And you're gonna you might laugh. I have to. I dip her clothes every morning to get dressed.
Right.
I don't know what happened to me. I have no idea. All I know, I remember giving her breakfast, and after school was done, she said, "Nana, I'm done." And when I looked, she still had her pajamas on. I totally forgot for her to change her clothing, and that's a perfect example. Paying attention. I mean, we need to pay attention because they can't go to school like that in pajamas. But that was the first and last time. I thought it was hilarious. I was actually embarrassed. And her pajamas looked like regular clothes. Thank God, that was a good thing. But since you did mention the online schooling, children, and I don't think it's any different than when they had to go to school. They still needed to brush their teeth. They need to have their hair combed. They need to be dressed.
Mm-hmm.
And the parents need to do that. But I also do understand that it's a hustle and bustle, if you would, when you do have to work, and there are parents that still are working outside the home.
Yeah.
So it's not an easy task.
It's not an easy task, and the parents are hardworking parents. Especially if they're single parents. That's a whole nother angle, right? And it's just a lot all the way around. But we're talking about parenting and the investment of what you put into your child and the time that you take to be an example, to communicate, and to invest the things that your child needs. And the reason why we're talking about this is because, of course, children are important. Being a parent is a gift, and it's tough sometimes, but when you take the time to pour into your child, or even your grandchild like yourself, Rebecca. I'm not a grandmom yet, but you are a wonderful grandmother. And when you take the time to pour into your children, there is it's a reward from that. Because, children are an investment. I just truly believe that, and when you want something to be a good return, you're going to put what you need into what you want to see. So that's what being a parent is all about. And I can say that because I have an adult daughter, and I was a very tough parent, but I believe that if you set an example and if you have high standards, in return, your children will have core values and do the things that are necessary, so that you can see what you want to see. You can't go wrong by being a tough parent. And I know there are parents out there that they have their own issues to deal with, right?
Mm-hmm.
Some people they don't look at that side of the coin. Being a parent could be pouring their all into a child, and the parent have their own issues. And the question from that end is, who does the parent turn to? Well, that's when their parent having a family and friends that are connected. We have to look out for each other. When I was growing up and I had older cousins, they were parents. I used to see family members kind of like just being supportive. You know what I mean? And so it made it easier for that person to be a good parent if they have a support system. So a support system is very important for the parent and for the child. Single parents go through a lot, but all things are possible. And like I said, the reason why we're talking about this is because we just want somebody to be encouraged and do the things that are necessary to continue to invest in their child and their children, and just continue to be a good parent. Also, I wanted to mention that it's funny how we don't get an instruction book on how to be a parent, right?
No,
We don't get an instruction book, but we can glean from what we know about God, and glean from the fact that prayer does answer all things, and that we can bring about change in ourselves as we grow with our children, and we can bring about change in our family as we just do something different. Yeah. So this topic is I wanted to talk about something else this evening, but I don't know why this topic came up. It just kept coming up over the last couple days because I was listening to Ricky Smiley, and he was talking about how he's a real tough disciplinary in his family. He talked about how he's real tough on the young boys in his family. He was saying that if he's not tough on them, then they won't be men. And he was saying that even the girls that he has raised, he's very tough on them. And he talked about how they're very successful. They all most of them went to college, and he just repetitively stated that it's just important to Be tough. What do you think about that, Rebecca? I mean, being too strict or being passive.
Well, my adult children tell me that I was very strict. I actually don't think I was strict enough, but an experience comes to me with my father. My father was a hardworking man. He's retired now. And my father gave me a lot of tough love. My father reminded me, if you don't get up, you're not going to be able to keep a job. He taught me when you get your paycheck, think about what's needed in your home, right? See what's needed in your home, and I remember on certain days, before going to work, because I used to work part-time also on a Saturday, and I remember he would just kind of stick his head in the doorway, and he would say, check with your mother to see what's needed in the house. See, that taught me that I needed to see what was needed in my home first when I got my paycheck.
Yes, gave you some discipline.
I went and I spent it on whatever I wanted, and so I would go and I would say, Mom, are there some things that are needed in the house that you need me to buy? And she would tell me toiletry items. Yeah. It wasn't like she would, send me to the store and spend and blow my whole check on grocery shopping. Yeah. But because my mother knew what my father was trying to instill in me, my mother would give me a small list. Yeah. And another important thing, as I became an adult, having children, I was a single mother, and my parents owned a very large house, but actually they had a house and a building, and they were apartments that they rented out. So of course my father one day said to me, you mentioned support. My parents supported me very much when my children were little, helping me, taking them to daycare. When there was no school or someone was sick, I could always leave them with my mother because my mother was retired at the time. But I remember one day my father said to me, Rebecca, he said, this is your home. And it was a small little apartment. I mean, it was small, SB. And he said to me, you make your home as beautiful as you can because this is your home. And I remember looking around, and like I said, it was a very small apartment, enough for my boys to sleep with me, and a place to go to the bathroom and a place to cook food. And I remember in that little place, I began to put curtains, and I began to light some candles. I began to get a mop, and I remember it was my little beautiful place. And that taught me as I became older, that it's not how big the home is, how expensive the home is. You take care of what you have, and you make it beautiful. You make it beautiful. Why? Because it's your home.
So he gave you core values.
Values. Those are values, and those are things that I passed on to my adult children. Yes. And I still remind them until today, because I do have a single son, and he's single, and sometimes I kind of remind him. I says, hey, let's hang this up, hang that up, But those are things I do remember from my father and my mother.
Yeah, core values are very important because some parents, they spoil their children. They give them everything they want, and giving a child everything, and even giving an adult child everything they want. That is not, to me, in my opinion, that's not healthy, because what happens is if the child is young and you give that child everything they want, that teenager everything they want, then what happens is that child grows up thinking that the world is going to give them everything they want. Give them, not work for it, give them. See,
that's right.
See, I taught my daughter that if you want certain things, you got to work for it. Of course, while she was, I would say, about 10 years old, 12 years old, that's when I started teaching her that. Like, if she did chores in the house, I would pay her for it, you know what I mean? Or I would, let her know if you wanted a certain toy or something like that. I would teach her the importance of working for what she wanted. I would reward her if she did something good. I would reward her with certain things, but I wouldn't just like constantly just give things to her, because I didn't want her to grow up thinking that people were just going to just give her everything. You understand what I'm saying?
Right.
So,
Yes.
so when she became a young adult, she understood that I got to work for what I want.
Work hard.
That's right.
And you were being a good role model. You were being a good role model. And that was the first part of your investment, being a good role model, because you were teaching her, but you were not only teaching her, but you were doing the same thing because she saw that by example.
Yeah, I had to do that because I grew up learning that from my grandfather. My grandfather was an entrepreneur, and every opportunity he would get, he would sit us down, his grandchildren, and he would tell us what we had to do if we wanted to be successful. He was constantly telling us to save our money. He was constantly telling us, don't be with a bad man. He was constantly telling us, we had to do the right things. And I thank God for him so much because he told me more than my mom and dad,
Isn't that something?
Yeah,
Something?
I mean, my mom, I can honestly say that my mom gave us her best, because when I think about how I was raised, I know for a fact that she gave us her best. You know what I'm saying? She was always trying to make sure that we understood certain standards when it came to how we had to keep the house and how we had to conduct ourselves. Now, that doesn't mean we was perfect, but it means that she constantly reminded us on how we should conduct ourselves, because she used to always tell us, don't treat people the wrong way. You got to be careful how you treat people. So that was a core value that she gave us. But to reply to what you said, yes, I tried to be an example for my daughter the best way I knew how. I wasn't a perfect mother, but I tried to set an example, because I used to look at the lives of other people and learn from them. If I saw something negative, I used to tell myself as a young mother, I don't want to do that. I don't want to be like that. That's just like now you see a generation of people teaching their children how to twerk. Oh, Lord Jesus, I could never do that. I could never.
No.
I could never.
No.
I could never teach my daughter. I mean, my daughter, I wanted my daughter to be a classy lady, and that is exactly what she is, thank you God. But
yes,
to teach a young girl how to twerk, no.
And as a matter of fact, SB, now back then, I don't believe the younger children, and I'm talking about the years that your daughter, my son was born.
Yeah.
Because they're kind of like around the same age.
Yeah, they are.
I don't believe we gave our children cell phones at that age when they were younger. And what I mean is, when they were 6, 7, 4, 5.
Yeah, that is true.
Now,
yeah.
yeah. It's young. I mean, it's young. And I think that, they weren't, you could correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't think they were so much exposed to so much of the online.
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
Because not only was there more of a more broader view, an open world online, but also there was some. Not only was there bullying and shaming in the classroom, but there was also bullying and shaming on the internet more now than back when they were younger.
Yeah.
I'm grateful that my kids played outside in the snow, rode their bikes.
Yeah.
Went hiking, went fishing. Went to the roller rink. Because a lot of younger children now, it seems like everything is on social media.
Yeah, and then
about that.
Yeah, and then it's the video games, and yeah, you're right. Yeah, it's social media. So you're absolutely right. Our children grew up in a different time, and because of that, I think that because of the internet, parenting I believe, has to be more strict. I think that if I was a parent of a young child during this generation, this time, I would have certain boundaries for my child. I wouldn't allow my child, like you said, having a cell phone at a young age and doing certain things a certain way. I think that this generation, they don't have boundaries and they're not held accountable. I think that parents are not holding their children accountable according to what they do and how they do it, how they look, how they walk out the house. I think that people lower their standards and they are not enforcing higher standards on their children to conduct themselves as respectful individuals. I mean, I could never, ever, I don't curse anyway, but I could never curse around my mom. If I did curse, my mom would probably take my head, take my head off.
I agree.
Now
my mother too.
Yeah, and these teenagers, they cuss around their parents. So when I see stuff like that in society, that tells me if a person feels comfortable cursing around their parent or cursing around their family members, if they feel comfortable doing that, that means there's no standard, there's no boundaries. And I'm not saying what I'm saying to be critical of anyone. What I'm saying to you listeners is that, as parents and as adults, whether you have a child or you don't have a child, we all should set an example for the next person. We should all do something different and do something better. We shouldn't complain about the things we don't want to see if we're not being the example, that we want to see. Because I see in here people complaining about, the teenagers in society and complaining about young people, but yet that same woman, that same man that's complaining about what these teenagers and young people are doing, that person that's complaining, they're not setting an example for the young man or for the young woman. We as adults, we should set examples. My daughter is of a certain age. She's a grown woman, and I still feel that I have to set a certain standard. We will have a glass of wine together. We have dinner together and drink a little bit. And I remember a couple of years ago, we were in Miami Beach together, and we were having a good time dancing and all that. But right in the midst of all of that, I said to myself, and I knew that this was God speaking to me. I knew it. Right in the midst of all of that, something in me said, you can have fun, but you're still her.
Yes.
Isn't that something?
Right.
That's
something.
Yes. And yeah, so when I heard that, I said, okay, that means I gotta continue to maintain certain standards. Because when you around your friends, you cut up a little bit, right? Well, guess what? I'm not gonna cut up around my daughter the same way I cut up around my friends. That's a different space.
Right.
So
yes. And if I can add to that, I think you're absolutely right. We need to set those boundaries and those standards with our adult children. But that has to start at an early age.
It does.
I think that if like you said, parenting didn't come with an instruction book. And many of us have learned. How do we become better parents? Well, we learn by making mistakes.
Yes.
And if there's parents out there who never made a mistake, well, God bless you, and email me and tell me how you did it, because there's no perfect parent,
No, there isn't.
But I do believe one thing, that you said that parenting is an investment.
Yes.
Yes. But and what we sow into that life, right? What we invest in, what we're giving to make that investment. We need to be careful that it's nothing excessive. If we're trying to keep everything needs to be balanced, and I think that's what I gathered from what you said.
Yes.
You were with your daughter. You were going out, and she was already an adult, right?
Yes.
There's a balance. There's a balance, and that little voice said to you, you're still her mother.
That's
and
right.
I think that there needs to be a balance in the home. And I don't think that parents, if they drink or they have some other recreational activities, I don't feel that those things should be done in the home with their teenage children or even adult children. I just think that there needs to be a line where
Yes.
Because let's be real. Let's be real.
Mm-hmm.
There are a lot of homes where things are more carefree and people live more freely.
Yes.
And they're able to go and come as they wish.
Yeah.
But we need to be careful because there are consequences if we're not careful in making a balance, even with our adult children.
Absolutely. Yes, absolutely. I'm glad you said that because if there is no balance in the home and a child or a young adult is allowed to do things in the parent's home, I believe that that's a pathway to more disrespect. That's just like if you allow your children your young children, young teenage children, you allow them to have certain types of company all hours of the night, and there is no boundary, there is no standard of the yes and the no. It's always yes. Then I believe that that type of behavior will breed more disrespect for the home. I think that like you said, certain behaviors has to be dealt with when a child is at a younger age. But I also believe that even if a child is a teenager or a young adult, that parent can still set a standard. Even if it's something that that parent has never done in the home to set a standard, they still can set a new standard, because I believe that if there's no accountability, then how can that young person learn anything about respect or respect for their home or their parent, you know?
Very true.
You know?
True. It's true. And I also want to say this, for parents, that were incarcerated, for parents that have come out of jail,
Mm-hmm.
For parents that have been rehabilitated,
Mm-hmm.
coming from perhaps alcoholism or from a drug addiction.
Mm-hmm.
I just want to say it's still not too late, to invest in your younger children and adult children. But with that, I need to always add, with that, we talked about communication very early on.
Yes.
There are times when we have to come to our children or even stepchildren.
Yes.
And we have to, we might have to apologize for some of that behavior that was not conducive of a role model. And I think that we need to be the bigger person, where, I think that when that dialogue begins, that's when the adult child and the parent, they begin to recognize and respect those differences and
Yes.
respect those mistakes
Mm-hmm.
that were made, because this is the true world, and these are true things that truly happen. Everything is not all peachy glory, and it's not, all about, the mother and father's working, or the mother and father, got their college degree, and for those that did, God bless you, and I think that's wonderful. But for a lot of minorities, that didn't take place, unfortunately. So I think that people need to realize, and parents, that it's not too late to go back on being a role model once you have rehabilitated yourself.
Yes.
And continue to love them, practice kindness, and show them love, but through action. And I believe that that investment is going to give you a good turn in the end.
Absolutely. Absolutely. It's never too late. Absent father, an absent mother. Yes, it is never too late. As long as you are on the earth, you have the opportunity to make it right, because if you are in a position to restore the relationship with your children, it's so important, because children are an investment. And when I say the word investment, I'm talking about seeing something in your children that you want to see. And I'm not talking about an investment where you just expecting something in return, because just because your children are successful does not always mean that we are entitled either. Because there are some parents that believe that they're entitled to everything. Yes, children can become a blessing to you and for you in your future, but investing in them is is a blessing to see something in them that you want to see. Children are a reflection of us. Being a parent, children are a reflection. Our children are a reflection of us. And so it's a beautiful thing when you can pour goodness into that individual, pour goodness into them because you want to see the best come out of them. So that is why I use the word investment, because when I think about my daughter and our relationship, one of the things I said to God was that I said to God, I want to be the best mother I can be. That's what I said to God in my heart. Now, I wasn't a perfect mother because I've made tons of mistakes because, like I said, we didn't, none of us, got this book in our hand to learn how to be a mom or dad, right? So, yes, I made mistakes, but striving to be a good parent is just is basically just having an open mind and an open heart to learn. That's all it is. An open heart and an open mind to learn about this individual that you are raising. Even if you are an adopted parent or you have a foster child, you are opening your mind and your heart to learn about this individual. And as they grow, you grow. Because as they do something different, you adjust to what they're doing different, and then you grow. And in that process, you learn about yourself. You learn things about yourself you never knew. And so it truly is, being a parent truly is a blessing. It's a gift from God. And we have to pour what's good into our children. For the person out there that may be listening that, you may not be a parent yet, or you may not want any children at all. That does not mean you can't, be an example for someone else that is probably paying attention to you. You don't have to have a child come through your womb in order to be a parent, of course. But there could be a young person, a young child somewhere in your family or your neighbors. It could be somebody somewhere that's paying attention to you. We all as adults have a responsibility to set an example, communicate something good so that we can be a blessing to somebody else. And when I say communicate something good, I'm talking about just simply, I got to keep saying it, just being an example. Just being an example. Can't go wrong with that. What you say, Rebecca? Can't go wrong.
No, you can't go wrong with that. And relationship. Mm-hmm. Relationship is so important.
Yes.
Relationship.
Yeah.
One thing I have to say that I have always taught my children, mm-hmm. outside of these four walls, of our home, mm-hmm. there's a world out there, okay? And you have to carry yourself with other individuals, and you have to navigate and thrive, mm-hmm. okay? And you need to grow and have healthy relationships, and all that starts with our parenting at home.
Yes, it starts with parenting, and be encouraging and not critical.
Yes.
Be encouraging and not critical, because when you are encouraging to your child as a parent, what happens is you boost their self-esteem. Being critical can be wasteful, because being critical is not always edifying. I know constructive criticism, when you have to correct a person, yes, you do have to do that, but it's better to be encouraging instead of critical.
SB, mm-hmm. that is so important. Mm-hmm. And one thing I have learned with my adult children, mm-hmm. being adult, was accepting who they have become as adults.
Yes.
Respecting the differences, mm-hmm. that we have, mother, daughter, mother, son, mother, mm-hmm. Daughter, mother, and love them unconditionally.
Yes.
And always lift them up. Always lift them up. My son comes for coffee many times during the week, and I make sure I give him a big smile, and because we take those things for granted when they're older.
Yes.
Especially when you have lost a child. I lost my son Stephen. Mm-hmm. I make sure now, boy, I'll give you the tightest hug now.
Wow.
And I think it's that affection. I think it's important to show affection. Yeah, yes. Also.
It is very important. Mm-hmm. It's so, as a parent, when we learn, then can teach. So we got to keep learning. When we learn, then we can teach, right? So we got to keep learning, and we have to be open-minded, and be willing to learn, because when we learn, we can teach, and just because we have adult children does not mean we can't teach. We can teach in our behavior. We can teach in how we conduct ourselves. So for those that are parents, just keep being an example to your child, your young adults and teenagers, and even your younger children. Communicate what is necessary. Be encouraging, not critical. Communicate and make it a priority to communicate effectively. Adjust and grow with your children as they grow, and always find a way to increase their self-esteem. Always. You can't go wrong with that, because our children are an investment. They're precious, and we have to help them to be the best, because they're gifted, and they have something to contribute to this crazy world. And so, but it starts with us, parents. It starts with us. And just because our children are, some of us, we have adult children, just because they are of a certain age, that does not mean that we stop being parents. So, Rebecca, I thank you for your input here. This was a topic, I didn't want to do this topic, but here we are.
Yes. Thank you. Thank you for having me. And it's a good reminder.
It is a good
for us to, all these things that you spoke about today, to, remind of how we should be, and also, teach the younger parents.
Yes.
Teach it on, move it forward.
Yes.
Thank you for having me, SB. I appreciate you.
Yeah, I appreciate you too. And listeners, just stay encouraged. By all means, keep praying, keep believing, keep your faith in God, and just keep believing by all means. No matter what you do, don't give up on what you're hoping for, what you're expecting for. Just keep believing, keep your faith in God, and hopefully things will get better concerning this pandemic, and we will see the other side of it with a huge blessing, because I believe that all things are subject to change. So I appreciate you, listeners. And if you need to reach me, you can reach me at sbfavor@yahoo.com via email. You can also find me on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram at sbfavor. I also have a YouTube channel at sbfavor. Please click like and click the bell so that you can receive a notification each time there is a new episode of SB Favor Thinking Podcast. I thank you so much for taking the time to listen again. And Rebecca, we got to find out what we're going to talk about next week. What you say?
Yes.
Yeah. So, listeners,
I look forward to it.
Yeah. So, listeners, have a good day and stay safe and enjoy the rest of your week. Talk to you soon.